Hello and welcome to another huge DIY project. If you saw the last one, you saw that we got a piano and added some picture frame molding to what is now the piano room, but what used to be the dining room, which means that the dining room is now this room, which was just too plain in comparison. So we decided to do some board and batten. I've never done this before, but that is how this all goes. And I love the way that it turned out. So first step is just clearing off all the walls, moving all the furniture. Other than the table, I just covered the table in some tarps and left it there, dusted off the walls, taped everything off, and then went to measuring out how high I wanted the board and batten to go, and then painting the wall. This is something I severely regretted when we did the picture frame molding in the other room, is that I didn't paint the wall before I put the molding up. Trust me, it is so much easier to just paint like the blank wall and have a lot less trimming to do when you don't have all that stuff up there. So just paint the wall. It'll make your whole life much, much easier. I am absolutely obsessed with this color. I will put what it is down below in the description. It is from Behr, and it is the same color we used in the other room, but we did a little opposite. I did my board and batten a little bit higher than is like typically normal, so I think I'm at 40 inches above the floor. It's been a while since I did this, so I'm not guaranteeing that, but I really like the way that turned out. Now, we did not elect to take the baseboards off, but when I went to put wood on the baseboard, it made this like weird ledge because like the wood was too large for the baseboard. So I got a second piece of baseboard and I put it upside down on top of the regular piece, and that just made it like a more gradual transition instead of like a big ledge kind of situation. Then I decided that yes, I was going to need to paint the top of the walls, which I wasn't originally planning to do. I just painted them the same color that they already were, and I will link that. I will put that down in the description as well. It is also a Behr color, and it's like a very, very, very soft gray. It's like basically almost white, and we're just kind of at that point where we've been in our house long enough that just kind of all the walls need to be painted at this point. So painted that whole wall, had to do the little half wall above the kitchen because it's connected to the other one, and then we got to cutting. I love my miter saw. So for this project, it actually took quite a few pieces of wood. So we have the baseboards that I added on the bottom. I also added a 1x4 on the bottom, a 1x4 on the top, 1x3s every 18 inches spaced out going up and down, and then on the very top I did a 1x2 on its side so that it makes like a little bit of a ledge on the very top, and it just kind of caps things off. I will say that if I do this again, and I actually already have plans to, instead of using the second baseboard, I would use a much smaller piece of trim. I found one, it's like a little like a half circle kind of situation, and it would just reduce having quite as much wood going on. But once I cut all of these with the bevel cuts so that all of them are at 45-degree angles and they will meet in the middle, I hoped perfectly, but it never is actually perfect because, fun fact, walls tend to not be straight or perfect, which is just great. Then I painted all of these pieces, which was super, super, super helpful again, because it just meant that there was so much less to stress about when I had them up on the actual wall and I was, trying to finish it up. I ended up using this wood glue. I went through a couple different bottles, but this one was my favorite. It's just the Gorilla Glue wood glue. So I added that to each of the pieces of wood, and then I used my brad nailer with some 2-inch brad nails to nail it up there, and it's actually a pretty quick process. I will say that it is very helpful to have a second pair of hands because a lot of these pieces are really long, and so these were fine because they were down on the bottom, but when I did the top pieces, I did them off camera because husband was helping, and it was really helpful to have husband to help me because, again, they were just really long and it was hard to like keep them straight while you're trying to nail them in, trying to do it all by yourself. So highly recommend you get some extra power for that. Next up, we're actually putting the boards that go up and down. Now for these, you're going to want to decide how much to space them out. So mine are about 18 inches, and I chose that because I wanted to avoid the outlet and the light switch. So that's why they're 18 inches apart. And I actually really like the spacing of them. For these, basically I go 18 inches. I measure how tall that spot is because, like I said, walls and ceilings and floors are not necessarily level, which means that some of the boards are just like slightly bigger than others. And so I would measure a spot, I would go cut that board, I would bring that board in, and then same kind of deal where I would put the wood glue on it and then nail it up. I opted to not paint these, which was a huge mistake because it would have been much easier if I had. But the reason I did is because the top one, I was worried about like the paint and like the paint line between the wall and the piece of wood. And I was like, oh, it's going to be fine because it's just gray and it's all gray. And so I didn't need to do that here. But next time I'm going to paint all of them and then I'm going to put them all up. So this process, this actual part took a few hours, but not too long. After that, make sure you go through with some wood filler. You can see up at the top that I already have some, and then caulk everything out. Using the caulk just makes everything look really seamless and really nice and pretty and put together and much more professional, even though I have basically no idea what I'm doing, and I've learned everything that I've done from YouTube. So there we go. For caulking, I have all of the different like caulking tools, but I will say that I find the easiest thing to just use my finger. So I just use the caulk and the caulk gun to go down, and then I just use my finger to get the excess off, and I usually put it into like a little cup, and that just seems to be the absolute easiest thing for me. After I did all of that, I sanded everything down, which you do not see on camera, and then we got to painting again. Now, I would have had to paint even if I had painted these boards because obviously now there's caulk on the wall and there's wood filler on the wall and things like that. So it wasn't a total loss, but basically just going through and painting. I highly recommend, if you are doing this, that you grab a mini roller. I used a brush for the inside parts and kind of like trimming, and then I used the 4-inch mini roller to roll the faces and the actual wall itself. I did another coat just, because I could, and it made it much faster. So I highly recommend that little mini roller. It was great. I love the way that this turned out. It was, I would say, more work than the picture frame molding, which might just be because it's just a lot more pieces of wood, but I love the effect. I think it looks so good, and my biggest concern was that it was going to look too similar to the other room and look weird, but I think they look just different enough that it looks pretty good. Here you can check out the before and the after, and I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time.